Hi, I am Anna Martin and welcome to the Flex podcast. So today we are talking about tracking results, and it's something we've been talking about on my Flex Big Three. In that, how can we track our results? Are some things better than others? What about if they make us feel stressed? All that kind of stuff. Okay, so firstly, tracking your results from what you're doing can be really handy. One, to help keep you motivated so that you can see that you're progressing, see that you're moving forward. And secondly, to show areas that you might need to pay more attention to. But sometimes tracking results doesn't give us the whole picture, or it can kind of make us feel a certain way, especially if something is taking longer to happen. So, what could we use to track our results? Well, probably one of the most popular things to track is body composition. So, that might mean your body weight, your measurements, how you look and how you feel. You might have one of those like body composition scale things at home. But some of these things are either not 100% accurate, like the body weight, the body composition scales, or only give you like half of the picture. And that isn't always necessarily a bad thing. So they're tools that we can use, and they're tools that we keep in our toolbox. But I would say if body composition is something that you're interested in, and that's either like weight or fat loss, muscle gain, or trying to maintain your body weight, using a mixture of things can really help. So, for example, if you're trying to lose body fat and gain muscle, for example, your weight, your scale weight, might not change that much, but what's happening inside is changing more. So if you're only weighing, that can prevent you from seeing the progress that you are actually making. So sometimes things like how you think you look, like you think, oh, I can see my shoulder muscles more, I can see this more, or my ass is looking perky, or whatever. That's how you look and how you feel. Same with any changes in the clothes that you're wearing and the fit of them. And that doesn't necessarily always mean that you are fitting into a smaller dress size. It's something that I think women think about a lot, but it can also mean that suddenly your t-shirt's a little tight over the arms because your biceps are getting massive. Or in my case, my back doesn't fit in the same dresses that it used to, and actually it tears the zip, that kind of thing. So it doesn't always have to mean one thing. Your measurements as well can help you see slight changes. So you might weigh the same, but actually your measurements have decreased or increased, or whatever it is that you are looking for or chasing. We can also use other things to see how we're getting on. For example, our strength, like the weights that we're lifting, how heavy we're lifting, how many reps we can do, which is why it's important to track our workouts. And also things like your adherence to everything, to food that you want to do, your training schedule. And that could, for some people, mean tracking calories or tracking their macros, but it could also mean portions. So, for example, if usually you never eat any protein, or you think you're really good because you had one slice of chicken, the fact that now you're having 3 fist-sized portions a day can help. So, tracking that kind of stuff. So, it can be portions of stuff that you're having. And it can be ticking things off. So when I check in my PT clients, and my Flex clients also have access to this sheet as well. So when they're tracking what they've done, they have boxes to tick, like resistance training, how many hours sleep they got, how many cardio workouts they did that week, or if they did their mobility stuff. So there's boxes for them to tick. And even seeing those boxes tick can help show that you're sticking to a better routine. And that is one way of tracking your progress as well. Because for some people, it might not be like a body composition thing that they want to check, or their strength, but they just want to know that they're doing it and they are following a program and they're being accountable to themselves. So whether or not, or which method of tracking we decide to use, sometimes we have to look at ourselves for a little bit of self-awareness. So for example, for some people, weighing regularly can make them feel a kind of way about it. It might make them feel stressed. It might be something that doesn't actually make them feel any more positive about the experience that they're having with their fitness journey. And for some people, that might be what it throws up initially, but with changing their mindset about it and seeing it for what it is, which is a numerical figure that can be part of our toolbox, that can help to kind of change our viewpoint a little bit. So whereas maybe they were having weekly weigh-ins at some kind of group where they were kind of berated for not losing weight, because the only thing that anyone cared about was losing weight, whether that was fat or muscle or a mixture of. No one really cared. You just had to lose weight. And that can sometimes be quite detrimental to how we feel about an experience that we're having in terms of fitness, especially if some of our goals trying to get stronger or to move better. We're not necessarily going to be focusing on our scale weight all the time. So it's changing how we perceive these things and what our actual goals are. So some people might want to be losing some weight, which probably they'd prefer to lose fat than muscle. So it isn't just scale weight that matters. We also want to see that we're maintaining our strength and that we're moving better. So we also want to look at those things as well and to track those as well. For some people, their viewpoint and the way they feel about something like scale weight or measurement is never going to change. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. We don't have to track those things. We don't have to count our calories. We don't have to weigh ourselves. But for some people, it can be really motivating or a really good way to show something they need to pay attention to. For other people, it's the worst thing in the world and they don't have to do it. So it is knowing yourself and being self-aware of where you are, how it makes you feel, and how and why that journey might change over time. So you might feel a certain way when you start doing something like, I do not want to track my scale weight. But later on down the line, you might think, actually, I don't think it would bother me anymore. And actually, it might be quite interesting because I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to gain muscle, whatever it is, could be interesting to track. We also have to be aware of ourselves as a human being. And I'm assuming that the vast majority of people who listen to this are female because my clients are. And we have to be aware that our bodies change very much throughout the month and indeed throughout our lives. And that's something we have to think about. So we could weigh several pounds more from a few days to the next, depending on where we are in our cycle. We also weigh more if we've eaten more the day before because we have more food on board our body. So there's more food in our digestive tract that weighs something. And if we've eaten more, so if we've eaten more carbs, like for example, we've just come out of Christmas, this when I'm recording this podcast. So we've just come out of Christmas, we've eaten loads of carbs, we're storing it. Some of it's stored in our muscle. It's also stored in water, so that weighs something. So there's all these different factors that come into it. So then when you start some kind of healthy eating thing, and for a lot of people, they might cut down the amount of carbs that they're eating, for example, that might be something they're focusing on. Then obviously the scale weight changes because there's less stored carbohydrate on board, so less water that it's stored in, and there's less food in the digestive tract. So then obviously the weight loss looks huge in that first week because it isn't just that we might be burning a bit of extra fat, but we're also losing weight that we have on board our body in terms of stored carbs, water, food, and that kind of stuff. And that isn't the same as losing fat. So it's important to remember that, because then people go, oh my God, it's really slowed down. I'm not working hard enough. No, it's just really normal for it to come off very quickly when you change your diet and then slow down quite a lot after, because then we're seeing what we're actually losing from our body fat stores or whatever. So another question that came up was how often you should or shouldn't track, especially if it's things like weight or measurements. And that again comes back to this self-awareness thing. Is it going to really trigger you to weigh every week and see those fluctuations in your scale weight? Or is it just something that you find interesting because it's interesting to see where your body is as a woman over the month, for example? And that's something that only you can answer. If it's going to make you feel triggered and stressed and cross at yourself and all these negative emotions, don't weigh. Like, honestly, just don't. Just leave it for now. Move more, feel better, focus on that for now. But if, for example, it's very important to you to lose weight and you're feeling very motivated and you find it's something that you have to track because you need it to give to someone else, or because you are feeling interested in how your body is, then by all means track. And yes, we fluctuate during the month, so we do have to be quite aware of that. Some people recommend that you weigh every day. so you can see the fluctuations, so you can see how it is, and you take an average. Some people would say track once a week and then see those fluctuations over the month. Some people would say track from the same day, same place in your cycle every month. I think you should do what feels good. I can't think of anything worse than weighing every day. I wouldn't remember for a start. Also, it's a lot of effort to do these things naked or with not your shoes and clothes on or whatever, have different clothing on, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I could be asked. So it would be something I'd just keep a moderate eye on and probably do it semi-regularly if I was bothered, but not let it eat me up. So we use that self-awareness. And then in terms of tracking food, do you need to track your food? No, you don't need to track your food. You can completely try and eat more healthily by looking at portions, how much fruit and veg you're eating, how much protein you're eating, by using fist size, cutting out certain things that you know that you're using to like snack on that maybe could be different, that kind of stuff. You can look at your diet that way. Or you can track in an app like MyFitnessPal or NutriCheck or whatever to see your macros, which are your macronutrients, or to see your calorie balance. There is not a wrong or right way of doing it. It's just what makes you feel more positive. I love an app. I like just sticking it in. I find it quick and easy. And it also, there's positives because I can also check how my saturated fat is looking, which is important to me because my cholesterol is higher than I would expect. Probably a touch genetic, and also because I used to eat a lot of cheese, so I stopped eating that and it dropped a bit. So for me, watching my saturated fat intake is demi interesting, checking my fibre and the amount of sodium that I'm eating so that I can consuming so that I can see that I'm getting enough basically, or not too much or whatever. But again, with tracking that kind of stuff, if you're doing everyone's heads in or you contemplated turning up to a dinner party with weighing scales for your food, then you might need to get a little grip and stop tracking for a bit. And some people can use it as an in and out tool. So you might track for a few days just so you can see where you're at. And then you know that you're on target, so you leave it for a bit. It might be that you track for a bit because you've got a short-term goal that you want to get, or because someone said to you your iron level's low or you're not eating enough fibre. So there are other reasons why we might use an app to track that aren't just about calories or macros. So weigh it up. And likewise with weighing your body, if you're contemplating taking your scales on holiday with you, I would suggest you need to stop weighing yourself. So we have to be aware of where the extremes of our behaviour can go. And we might not be a person who has these extremes, and that's fine. In fact, in which case you're going to do whatever you want. But if you know you're prone to taking things way too seriously or getting too heavily involved in something, then, you've got to keep a little eye on your behaviour and how it's making you feel. And just on a note of the tracking of stuff, and in terms of tracking the food that you're eating, sometimes it isn't about looking at it in terms of a weight loss or calorie maintenance or whatever. Sometimes it can be that we need to do it because we want to use that data in our favour. So for some people, that might be that data gives you a rocket up your arse. So if I go and check my FitnessPal and I'm not really getting anywhere near my fibre goal, I know that maybe that's something that I need to have a little look at. And likewise, sometimes I might be trying to think of an example. I might be not feeling that great or whatever. Maybe you've experienced some weight loss that you weren't expecting and you want to go to the doctor to ask about it. And you want to have some figures to back you up. So it might be that you know how many calories you're eating. So you go and you say, look, I've lost weight unexpectedly. I'm eating this much food. So I wouldn't expect to be losing weight on this. So it can be that sometimes data can help you, back you up so you can start to ask for something. You can ask for blood tests, or you want to take it as an example to someone who you're speaking to about your nutrition or about your health, for example. Look, this is what I'm doing. I am tracking it. I am eating enough fibre. I'm still having digestive problems. Please, can I talk to someone about it? So there are things that maybe we want to do so that we have it as evidence. And sometimes just the data can give you that rocket up the arse. Like, for example, when I've eaten loads of cheese and I bother to track And then I look and I think, holy crap, my saturated fat is wild. No wonder my cholesterol is a touch high. I need to get my shit together. So that's a helpful rocket up my arse, because I don't want to have super high cholesterol. I want to keep a little monitor on that stuff and make sure that I'm doing what I can to be healthy, even though I do love cheese. So it's not always, tracking isn't always like this negative thing, and it's not always a positive thing. It's different for everyone, and it's different for different goals in the same person and different outcomes for that same person. So tracking your weight, scale weight, might make you feel quite stressed, but tracking your fibre intake for the day might be something that doesn't stress you out. So it's very dependent on you and what you want to do. But it does help if you are deciding to track something, for example, scale weight, that you are doing it with other tools. So scale weight is one of those things that, just from working with all of my clients, doesn't always change particularly quickly, especially in some groups of women, and can take time to come down. It also can take time to come down if they're training quite hard, so that they might not see these changes in the scale weight, but they are seeing differences in how they look and how they feel, and also in their measurements. So having all these tools in the toolbox helps to give you an overall picture. And it's just the same for a PT. We don't just use one thing, we use many different things. And part of that is client reporting, in terms of whether they're tracking their food or not, or how they're talking about their food, or their training when we go through things together. So it is using all of your knowledge to put together a picture. And some of your knowledge does come from the data that you're collecting. And even if that data is things like tracking your training schedule, so you know that you did 4 resistance sessions this week and you were only doing 1 3 months ago, that's a huge improvement. That's a result. That is a result that you're tracking. You've managed to do 4 workouts a week for 4 weeks. You should be very proud. That is a definite result. So it doesn't always have to be, results that we're looking for don't always have to be the same thing. Like the first time someone can do a pull-up is incredible. That is the day that they remember, the first time they did it. They'll scream when they get down, they've managed their first pull-up. The first time they ever do a squat weight that they wanted to get, they will remember that. So these are physical things, physical parts of their training plan that they're seeing results in, that has absolutely minimal amount to do with scale weight. And the only reason I'm saying minimal amount is because obviously how much you weigh affects how much you can pull up and stuff like that. But your actual weight on the scale probably isn't that much of a goal if your goal is to be able to do this 70 kilo squat or 80 kilo squat or whatever it is that you want to do. So I think the general thing, 1, use many things in the toolbox so you get an overall picture. 2, don't do things that are going to stress you out at that point in your life. And if you don't need that stress, don't take that stress on. Enjoy being fit and healthy for what it is. And we don't all come in with body composition goals, and that's absolutely fine. And thirdly, be kind to yourself with how you're choosing to do things, and recognize where the progress is, because it isn't always going to come from these trackable things. Like weight's easy to track. Most people have scales at home or at the gym. So it's easy, it's simple. We just step on and we step off. Some other things take a little bit more effort. And that's one of the reasons why people use scale weight so much, is because it's simple and easy and visible. You can see it on that scale. But actually, a lot of the other stuff is just as important, like having a regular training schedule, like being accountable to yourself, like eating more fruit and veg, and feeling more energetic. It's very difficult to track feeling more energetic, but you know when you do. But it is difficult to track that. So sometimes having like my geeky spreadsheet my clients have, where they can track their energy levels and stuff. And secondly, maybe having a sexy little notebook where you write down how you're feeling that day, or energy, how your workout went, that kind of stuff. There are so many different ways to track it. You have to find a way that works for you, and you have to be open in your mindset in terms of, just because I've always done scale weight doesn't mean that that is all I have to do going forward. I'm going to be flexible with how I see things, and I'm going to be flexible with my mindset, and also I'm going to learn how to love myself, how Love how hard I'm working at this, love how the journey is feeling to me, rather than just this is my only goal is to do this and I don't really care how I feel or what I do to get there. We do care because we want to eat healthy and we want to be healthy despite whether we weigh less or weigh more. Being healthy is a separate thing. So just remember that. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I feel like I talked a lot longer than I thought I was going to about this. But apparently I always have a lot to say. Never mind. Have great days, and I will talk to you again soon.